Elena's here. Let's see. Hola. Oh, okay.
Hey,
now we see there's more.
Okay, you hear us.
All right, good.
All right.
Wow, all right, we're going to start now. Wait a minute. Okay. If you can't hear us, send us an angry face. We see them go up the screen there.
Oh, yeah. That's probably easier.
All right, we'll start looking up. Okay, so Pastor George here, but to Susan, I'm just George, of course. And this is my bride, Susan. And you're used to hearing from me every week, multiple times a week. But today you get to hear from both of us a little bit. And so here's what's going on. Here's what I thought. I've been online a lot, like anybody who's on this. And it's just been funny to me. It's been humorous how so many people are putting these Facebook homeschool posts now. Like everybody's a homeschool parent or a homeschool mom, and homeschoolers sort of feel vindicated now that they're homeschooling. One of the now that others have to homeschool, one of the memes I've seen is people's perception of homeschool moms before coronavirus. You saw that one?
I've seen that one.
Okay, good. Right. And so it's like, some modestly dressed women with the bonnets, but then it says now their impression of homeschool moms, and it's like Wonder Woman.
Superwomen, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that one I really liked is somebody said, now y'all are going to see the problem wasn't your kid's teacher.
Yeah.
And so as I'm laughing at all these things, thinking, we've homeschooled before, listen to all these people, it dawned on me, oh my gosh, this is going on in my own home. Like, what are these kids doing here? And what is going on here? And
Lord of the Flies in our
yes.
house.
And so if you're coming to this for answers, we might be the wrong people to give them to you. But if you're coming to this to maybe help you think through some of this stuff, then maybe you've come to the right place. So let me just get to some of our background, and I'll do that by means of asking students some questions. So how long have we? What are the different schooling ways we've done in our lives for our kids?
We've started out homeschooling, and then we did put them in Christian school, and then we went back to homeschooling, and then when we moved here, we put them in public school, and I think I even did some online schooling with some classes for them, and that might be it.
Well, now and then Adam's in a private school now.
Yeah.
So we've done all the sort of ways, right? Like public, private, and homeschooling, and kind of back and forth. The longest period of any of it was 4 years straight of homeschooling prior to moving here. And now everybody is saying they're a homeschool family, and they are, because there's all kinds of ways to homeschool. But what I want to ask you is this homeschooling?
No, this is schooling at home. School at home. And what's different about it is homeschooling, you get to have a whole plan already made from usually the summer, and you plan out what you're going to do, you plan out the curriculum you're going to use, you plan out your days, you go take trips, you do I want to say the beach, but we don't go to the beach anymore, but like the park, you go to the library, you go visit other homeschooling families, and you have a real network and a plan. And now I feel like what parents are stuck in right now is they've been thrown into this, but they're not actually ready. Nobody's ready for this.
Right. So you think it's easier or harder?
Much harder.
It's harder to get dumped into it, yes. and to not have a routine. And I like you said two things: a community and a plan. And right now, as parents, we don't have really either, because the kids aren't supposed to be with other kids, and the plan is just sort of unfolding before our eyes.
Right.
And part of our secret is what was your degree in college?
What do you mean? Like business administration?
Right, and I was an engineer, but we actually do have teaching certificates because we spent stints as teachers, and teachers like to be in control of their plans and the plan, and now you don't have any of that. And so in some sense this is harder. But homeschool families, like we said, we've done it. I mean, they spend hours and hours just planning, all summers long, planning, going to conferences and picking curriculums. I mean, it's a different kind of of busy, but it's when they hit the school year, they hit the ground running. And obviously, full-time homeschooling is not for everybody.
Right.
And so, but now everybody's got to do it. And so we got two sort of tastes of these kinds of transitions. One is when we moved last year, there was like a 3-month period, January, February, March, and April, 4 months, where we were leaving a house, living apart in a transitionary situation, and then moving into a house. What was homeschooling like then?
That was torture. That wasn't fun.
Why? Didn't you have a plan?
Yeah, that kind of had to get thrown out the window. So a lot of times your best laid plans don't work out at all. And so what we ended up doing was we did school in the morning and we cut like half of the classes that I had planned out to do because I realized we have interruptions from people. Well, I have to show the house. So I got 3 kids and the dog and everybody got to clean up and everything, get all their stuff out, put it away. Okay, leave the house. So the realtor comes, everything, constant interruptions with that. And so I just broke it down to, all right, we're going to get the 3 R's done, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And that was it. We would do that every day until we moved. And then when we were living in someone else's house with my sister, and that was just a disaster because part of school is you learn a little bit and then you learn a little more and you build on it. And when that's not happening, when you're getting interrupted, you forget and then you have to go back and it's like a waste of time. So we kind of gave up when we were traveling that time. We kind of just did reading and basic math stuff, just review.
So why we're bringing up this, because obviously that's homeschooling that we were trying to do and now this is kind of thrust upon us, but your heart to educate the kids and how serious you take that. How did you deal with sort of the pressure that maybe, are they getting everything they need? Are you doing everything you can? Like trying to juggle all these things, because that applies now where, people have jobs and maybe you're working from home, and you have to wonder how, and you feel like you're selling your kids short. So how did you work through some of those things?
Well, you do have to give yourself some grace. And there is also an adjustment period. So you can't expect everything to be wonderful the first few days, even the first couple weeks. Even for us right now, I mean, we've kind of worked it out where I have a plan now. But the first couple weeks are just an adjustment. And if you have multiple kids, trying to get all of them to do their school at the same time and never having managed that before, it can be very, very disheartening to try to manage that. And that you just want to shut yourself in the closet, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest, but yes, you do. It gets frustrating. And so one thing is to give yourself grace, set aside some time just for you to pray through it, to plan it out, what you want to do, and then come up with a plan, basically.
Yeah. Good. I mean that's great. And if you are the primary one guiding your kids through this schooling, if you're not that person, like in our home it's Susan, and I'm a little bit engaged, admittedly not maybe as much as I should be, but I get to also kind of observe the tone of the household. And fathers and dads, we're heads of the house, and we have to see, we have to be able to step in and help our spouses and just help them to see what's going on, not to judge this is the wrong way to do something, this is the right way to do something, but just to sort of see and encourage them to take a deep breath. I mean, the whole country is going through this, right? I mean, it's okay if your kid gets a little behind.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
It's okay. Everybody's going through it. And so like that. And then sort of the next phase for us is, so we moved here and we were still homeschooling in the spring. And then we prayed through it and we really liked the schools that were around here and y'all's kids are in them. And we thought, man, we're going to put our kids in the schools. And so our 2 younger ones go to the public school and Adam goes to a private Christian school. And, at the same time, Susan got a job as the director of this outreach center and welcome. It's a part-time job, but that gets her in and out of the house quite a bit. And of course, my role changed here at the church, and all that happened at once. And we thought, thank God the kids are in school.
Yeah.
And then we saw what they're doing in school, and every kid has every teacher's using a different sort of platform, and everyone has different expectations, and they have different calendars. And of course, with 2 different schools, you got that. And I don't know if every school is the same, but learning all just the logins to get kids.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Well, now, if you've been in the school, maybe it's easy, but we had to work through that in the fall. Now it's all happening again, because all the teachers, and I know you're experiencing this because I read your comments, and all the schools are moving to distance learning. Some of them are sending packets home. Maybe that's the easiest thing. The kids get a packet of work they got to do, and they do it. But others have multiple logins for one kid to get different things. And God bless the teachers. They got to manage all this. I mean, if you're frustrated, imagine them all of a sudden. So what are some tips on how to get your kids set up to manage multiple platforms, multiple ways of assignments, multiple modalities, all in your home?
So one thing that I would recommend is to have, just kind of look over, it will depend on the age of your child too. A lot of your older kids will be able to do most of their stuff independently, but the younger kids, I mean, I've really struggled with Asher this week, trying to get all of his stuff done. And so one thing that I would recommend is to just set up a schedule of some sort. So whenever they wake up, half an hour later, let them do their breakfast and their chores and whatever they do in the morning, and then get started right at, if they wake up at 8, get started right at 9. And ideally, if you only have one child, then you can just move from subject to subject, or have them move from subject to subject when they finished whatever they have to do. Now, you are hopefully, if I'm not talking to the homeschoolers now, I'm talking to the ones that are stuck doing school at home, hopefully your teacher is sending you a list or some assignments of what they have to do. And so if they're doing that, then your job is to kind of make sure that stuff's getting done. And so what I started doing was the night before, I started talking to the kids a little bit and getting them prepped for the next day. Like, okay, when you get this done, then you start this. And when you do this and that. And so that went pretty well. But it's tough because I work. And so a lot of you, I'm sure, are working from home and trying to deal with your kids doing something in the room next door, and you're hearing it, and doesn't sound like school. Yeah,
it doesn't sound
that
like
happens.
School. Right.
So there does need to be some supervision with the younger ones. But yeah, if you set up a schedule, that should help, and then make sure that they are being checked over, and that you're not just like, okay, go do that, and not really checking over that they're doing it, because that's another way that they can fall through the cracks and not get stuff done.
Yeah. Okay, so having a plan for your kids, and when Susan started doing that, it really just brought peace to this whole thing. Was me, spending time with them the night before, because the way her job works is she's out in the morning, and then I wake up and I'm usually with them in the mornings before I come in here, and then she gets back. But they have a plan that they're supposed to do, and of course, if I hear too much noise, I just, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing?
Right.
And that's sort of their cue. But it's, what, dads too, if you're working from home or you get to stay home with them, it's been so cool to have my kids come up to me and say, hey, Dad, you want to see this? Like, they're excited for their schoolwork. This is what God has called them to do at this time, in this moment, and it's important. It's not just math, or it's not just art. It's how God is creating and developing your kids. And so I put down what I'm doing, and I go see what it is. If I need to finish, I'll say, I'm going to come in 5 minutes, okay? And then I come over and I give them some attention. And what a great opportunity we have to sort of take part in that with them. So structure is important. What about... they got a lot of free time on their hands, right?
Right.
You're not getting 6-7 hours worth of schoolwork, probably. Maybe a day you might try to cram something in. So, and they're not doing band and art and drama and sports. They're not maybe seeing their friends. So how do you kind of balance? They can't be quiet all day.
Right.
So how do you balance that?
Well, one thing is you do want to have some indoor-outdoor time, even if it's just in the backyard, or even if it's just in the front yard doing something outside. I would highly recommend that they get outdoors even though I don't know if that's allowed with the coronavirus. But as long as they're away from other people, it should be fine. But doing
Right.
something outside, I think, is help. And give them something to do. Go find me, 10 different flowers, or go count how many birds you see in the tree, or, just like random things, but it'll get them outside, it'll get them looking around, it'll get them doing something. So you might have to push them a little bit to do it, and then once they're out there, maybe they'll figure it out and spend some more time.
Yeah.
out
Oh,
there.
so you're bringing some of your homeschool mom stuff into their school day, right?
Right, it might help.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I've even had some days where the kids haven't had anything to do, and I just saw, I'm like, man, you're not going to waste the whole day sitting inside doing nothing. So I made them read. I'm like, pick a book and read for an hour. Well, I don't have any books. Okay, pick up the Bible and read.
Yeah.
And okay, Dad, and then and they do it. So these are just things that we've experienced, and we've had all the same frustrations that y'all have had. We've all had probably all the same laughter you've had. We've had all those emotions and all those funny things. It's
Yes, it's true.
So we're not experts. We're not trying to be experts. I'm amazed at the homeschool families we have in our church and the ones we know back home. And like one family in particular, they have 8 kids. There's somewhere 8 kids. I can never keep track because there's always another one. There's always, and they run a tight ship. It's amazing. And I thought we did good, but for 8, I don't know, we could have done 8. So yeah, but the older kids help. But it can be done,
Yes,
But
it's hard.
grace. Now, what about grace for the kids?
Yes, so also maybe some rewards too. We don't want to make it where it's all just get this done, get that done, go do this, go do that. You don't want to be, not that you're barking orders at them, you probably aren't, but you do want to give them some grace if they mess up and they forgot to do an assignment, or if they aren't exactly working on what they're supposed to be and they got distracted on their tablet or whatever else. And so yes, we're not, this shouldn't be a time of stress for them. It should be more of a time of not relaxation, but just a change. And so a new adjustment, a new normal, because seems like it's going to continue at least through May.
It's probably, yeah.
So you're right. So this is the kind of the new normal. And although I didn't really want to accept it, now I'm coming to accept it.
Yeah. A lot of what we've been talking about really kind of feels like it applies more to the younger kids, because the older kids know how to use computers. They know how to, sort of navigate some of this stuff. They're also very much more skilled at workarounds for it. And now they're going to have a lot of free time on their hands. You with teenagers, up middle school and high school kids. And we don't have that, but I was a high school teacher for 8 years, and Susan actually taught 9th graders, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a while there. So, we know how they are. And what was one of the things you were telling me yesterday, like, is kind of important for people to realize that maybe they're not aware of, but now they are, because their kids are all home all day and have access to computers all day.
So one thing especially, and I don't know how prevalent it is, but I know that on the computer, they're forced to be on it. A lot of them did it at school, where there's filters and there's all kinds of things that protect their eyes from seeing inappropriate material. But at home, you may not have any of those safeguards in your computer. And so your child may be doing some research for a project, or just trying to type in whatever their teacher says the code is on YouTube or whatever it is. And if you don't have any kind of parental controls or restrictions on your computer, they could unknowingly stumble upon something like that. Or, kids are curious. Like you said, they have a lot of free time on their hands and they're bored, and, who knows? So we want to keep them safe and yet not make them feel like they're doing something bad when they're just trying to look up stuff on the computer. So one of the things that I have on our computers it's called Custodio. It's with a Q, so I can probably type it in there.
Why do you spell it?
QUSTUDIO. Yeah, .com. And that has a free sign up, I believe. Oh, it won't let you share it.
Oh,
That's weird.
very strange.
anyway, that it's free for one computer, and you sign up through an email. And so I just used each of the kids' emails on each of their computers because otherwise you have to pay for it. But that's kind of a workaround of getting it for free. And it lets you monitor or restrict their browsing abilities, and it restricts certain websites and that kind of thing. So one of the things that you definitely want as a minimum is to require safe search through Google. And so that way when they're searching for things, it brings up, it'll filter out explicit stuff, which you want. Because if you just search for something in Google, it will bring up all kinds of stuff. So you want safe search on, and then that also applies to YouTube. There is a restricted mode in YouTube, which it's kind of a lock on it. When you use Custodio, it's a lock, so that way they can't search and it won't bring up those sites. And then Custodio can also block certain phrases and things like that. It's something you'd have to look into. There's also many other companies that do this. So if it's something that you're interested in, just do a search for web filter, internet filter, something like that, and you can look at, there's a lot of different names of companies that do that. So
yeah, or and we have a great resource and network of people in this church, and talk to other parents and see what they're using. I know that that's an important thing here, and so it's the other thing is, you think the kids are they're at school and they're supervised, and they are. And now they're in your homes and they have all day, and you might be working or whatever, and they're not really supervised. Maybe we're talking about the older ones now,
right.
And so you got to be careful, And when you add those filters, it might prevent them from doing schoolwork, like if they're doing research for science. So how do we get around that? Like for Adam, he's in 7th grade and he has to do some more advanced projects, and sometimes the filters on the websites won't let him get there. How do you manage that with him?
So what I usually make sure that I do is all of his required school stuff that he signs into, I make sure that that's all in the approved websites. Because if it's not, then that's going to block him from getting into Google Classroom and going into Google Hangout or whatever he has to meet up with his teachers at. So those things I put in the approved lists. And then the random stuff that he has to research on, yes, it's probably going to block some of it. And that's okay. I'm fine with it blocking some of it until I come home, and then I'm with him while he's searching.
There you go. That's the point, right?
Yeah.
So then you'll remove you'll release it so he can search, but then you're kind of monitoring him.
Yeah.
And so these are important things, and they're decisions for homes to do. But yeah, what about the socialization? I mean, the homeschool community, for all the bad rap they get about socialization, they have awesome socialization.
Yeah, they do.
But now nobody's allowed to go out.
Right.
And so we didn't even talk about this, but how do the kids get relational stuff with other kids?
Well, I know that my kid's school has, it's another, I think it's called Loom, or it's called, I don't even remember the name of the site. But the teachers it does seem like they're trying to actively get the kids to sign in and at least have one class a day. I don't know if that's happening in every school, but that was an echo.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's happening everywhere, but that's an option. Another one is to just use FaceTime and let your kids call their friends, or, texting through email. If you feel comfortable, letting your child have another child's email and they can correspond that way. It's tough. It's isolating. It's a little easier for the introverts because we're not as social, so we don't need it as much, but I know that the more social kids struggle. Like, we had kids in the neighborhood that were just coming over, and one of them came in and hugged my daughter.
Oh no.
And I was like, I don't think she was supposed to do that. But she couldn't. She just came over to drop something off, and then she's just like, hi, Ariel, and she couldn't help herself. And so I know that kids like her, the really outgoing kids are probably struggling, and so you may have to do something else for them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You mentioned a neighborhood, and I was thinking of what was going on in our neighborhood group, and how some kids were out in the neighborhood and they were harassing some neighbors' dogs, and that's not good. And the first thing that went through my mind is like, oh, I hope it's not my kids, And we looked at the time it was, and we knew it wasn't them, but we talked to them about that, and that's kids are going to be kids, and it doesn't make them bad kids if they're if they're getting into stuff, you got to expect, I think, that kids could get into stuff. So you just have to be talking to them. So we talk to them, and they're like, yeah, we stay away from the dogs. So I'm like,
Right.
all right.
Yeah, it's just, you got to monitor, check in with them. This is tough. This is challenging. We don't have all the answers for sure.
No. So I think that's pretty well tapped what we want to talk about. Is there any questions? I don't know if I can see them real time or not. But if you have any questions or anything about us, maybe you could post it in there. I got to plug the battery. To plug into that. So. Are any coming through?
I don't know. Can't tell.
Okay.
I can't see any. I don't know if it's updated though. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, now's a good time for questions. We're not.
All right, so we don't need questions. I see there's still a bunch of you on here, and that's great. So I don't know. I mean, you could always submit questions later. My hope is that this spurs conversation among y'all, and also that for those of you that have been stressed out about this, some of it's jokingly, some of it's real, and I get that you just give yourself a break. Everybody's going through it. Maybe you do some of what Susan suggested. You help the kids plan. Doing it the day before is helpful. Also planning things into their day where they get good stress and relief. They get to get some energy out, and then they have to do, because they're not going to be buckled down for 12 hours, while you work at home or whatever it is. And so these are just some ideas. I really hope, and we have so many parents that do this full time. And again, they spend all summer planning, picking curriculum and everything. But they have a lot of great strategies, and they're used to having to do activities with their kids, like Susan named a few. But, ask them, ask the homeschool parents in our church or in your neighborhood, like, well, what do you do to keep them busy? And how do you, what's a good project? And this is really a time, if we put some energy and thought into it, that they can really flourish because, let them be outside and let them explore and let them look it up, what they just found, whatever it is. So, anyway, that'll be a wrap on this. We're right at about 30 minutes. Are we going to be on Monday?
Sure.
I promised her this wouldn't be an everyday thing. But on Monday, we want to talk to you about family worship at home and doing family devotions and family worship and what that looks like for y'all. And the same thing, we've experienced highs and lows in this. That's why we are not an expert, but we can share with you some of what worked, some of what didn't work.
Yeah.
And it definitely didn't work at times. And then there's times you just got to offer yourself grace because she's out of the home Tuesday night and Thursday night just for 2 hours, not before bedtime. I mean, it's before bedtime she's home, but that's how do you squeeze it in? Wednesday nights we're at church, so how do we do family devotions? I think it's a perfect time to implement that in your homes and worship together as a family. And that's not really just singing. We can add singing to it, but it's talking about the Word and it's reading the Bible and it's getting your kids to explain what they're hearing and having conversation. And now
Don't give away too much.
Oh, I've already said it. So now, and see, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
That's okay. Anyway, tune in on Monday night at 7 o'clock, and if we change the time and we do it a different day, we'll let you know. But it's great to hang out with everybody. I'm going to look. Oh, here we go. Perspective. I need perspective. Big picture, gospel perspective. When it's been a hard day, especially with special needs kids, I need perspective. Okay, that from Shannon. So they were putting questions in here. We'll answer that and then we'll tune off. But again, it's about grace, offering yourself grace because God offers you grace. God is not legalistically requiring that you homeschool your kids and that they learn whatever you think they need to learn. You need to be able to gauge if what you're doing is working. If it's not, ask for help. But whatever it is, whether you fail or whether you succeed, God loves you, and your kids need to know that you love them. And so if you're frustrated and you need to take, your gut is to take it out on them, take a deep breath, go outside for a walk, come back and work through it with them. But remember, you're not being judged in the world, let alone by the creator of the universe, on how well you homeschool. But we are called to always be teaching, again, back to that family worship. I mean, time with your kids is worship to God when you're focusing on Him. So offer yourself grace, offer the kids grace.
And offer the teachers grace.
Yes, good point.
Because this is all new to a lot of them also. And I know that sometimes they're giving your kids work because probably other parents are like, my kids are already done, and what am I going to do with them all day? Give me more work. And other parents are like, this is taking 5 hours for my kids to do just one subject. So there's a balance there, and you know, the perspective I would have is, it's okay, let it go. So what? So they get a 0 on something. Oh well, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
So I mean, the gospel perspective is you're loved by God, you're a child of God, and love your kids.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it. And actually, since we're going to end on the child of God, I'll see if I can get that in the camera. This is in my office here. There it is.
Very nice.
We're out.